He said, pray as you see me pray. Utter these words that you hear me say. Based on the Sunnah, worship Him, just follow them.
Assalamu alaikum. New class coming to you every Monday and Wednesdays, taught by Ustad Layla Nashiba, the fiqh of prayer. Every Monday and Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Inshallah, we'll see you there. Streaming on all major platforms. Channel Sunnahfollowers.
Okay, Ina alhamdulillah, wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. I'd like to welcome everybody to our series on how to perform the prayer. And tonight, inshallah, I'm going to answer two questions. I'm going to give you the answer for two questions that many Muslims ask about regarding the prayer. The first question is, what is the prostration of thankfulness? And then the second question that many new Muslims ask is, what do you do if you forget something during the prayer? So tonight we're going to discuss the prostrations of forgetfulness, and also the prostration of thankfulness. So with that said, let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen, and give me a second here. Oh, yeah, PowerPoint. I'm sorry, I got to remember I'm doing these two different computers. This one has that. Hold on here and move this out the way. At least Zoom made it so I can move that thing out the way. But now I got to come up in here. Okay, so inshallah, what happened? Okay, good. So we're going to discuss the prostration of thankfulness and also the prostrations of forgiveness during the prayer. And I believe I started off with thankfulness. Let's take a look at it. Put this out the way. Oh, let me make my screen larger because the print is so small. I can't see it unless I go to the Zoom. Okay, when we talk about the prostration of thankfulness, I want you guys to know that it is not an obligation. I repeat, the prostration of thankfulness is not an obligation. That means if you don't prostrate, Allah is not going to punish you, nor is He going to hold you accountable. Okay, but it's something that we are encouraged to do. Why? Because remember, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that the most humble position that any human can take before Allah is to prostrate. And he encouraged us that whenever we receive something good, or good news happens to us, or anything good period happens, that we should take a prostrate to show our gratitude towards Allah. And that way, Allah will continue to send good things our way. We have this hadith where Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, Ali wrote to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, telling him that Hamazan had converted to Islam. And when the Prophet heard that when they read the letter to the Prophet, he prostrated. He went down to the ground and prostrated. And when he raised his head, he said, Alhamdulillah. He said, peace be upon Hamazan. Peace be upon Hamazan. Okay, so again, and this is Sahih Bukhari. That's how you know it's authentic. Also, Ibn Auf tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went out one time, and Ibn Auf followed him until he reached a grove of palm trees, and then the Prophet just prostrated. like this little boy is doing in this picture. He just prostrated. And he stayed in that position for so long that Ibn Auf thought that maybe he had died. So Ibn Auf went to him, and when he arrived next to him, the prophet raised his head and asked him what was wrong, because he could tell from the look on Ibn Auf's face that he was, worried. And Ibn Auf told him, "You prostrated, and I didn't know if you were dead or alive or what." And that's when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the angel Jibril alayhi salam had come to me and told me some good news. He told me that Allah said, whoever makes dua for me, I will pray upon that. Allah will pray make dua for that, will pray upon that person. And whoever greets me, Allah will greet that person. So after Jibril had told me this good news, I prostrated to thank Allah. And this hadith is authentic. It's Bukhari and Muslim. So we learn from these hadiths that whenever we receive any good news or blessings, that it's good to prostrate to thank Allah. And what do you do when you prostrate? You simply just say, "Oh Allah, thank you for this blessing." And again, I want to emphasize that you don't have to be in a state of purity. We talked about that the other day. You don't have to be in a state of purity. And by the way, I held off on giving you guys the quiz. The reason why is because I decided that I'm going to quiz you on all three of these prostrations the next time we meet. I'd rather hold the quiz off until I do these two as well, and then I'll quiz you on all three. So you don't have to be in a state of purification. Again, a woman doesn't have to have wudu. You can prostrate when you're on your menses. Anyone that tells you that you can't, tell them to bring the dalil. Okay? You don't have to have purified clothing or any of that either. Again, as one of the early scholars said, Ash-Shawkani, he said there is nothing in the authentic hadith to prove that having wudu and being pure, of clothing and places are required to prostrate. Okay, and also these hadiths are silent about any takbir too. There's nothing here that mentions anything about saying takbir or Allahu Akbar when you prostrate. You just simply go down to the ground like this little boy is doing here and prostrate and thank Allah. Okay? So that's the prostration of thankfulness. And again, you do it whenever you receive good news. Say, for example, you go to the doctor. The doctor tell you that you're pregnant, mashallah, then you can prostrate and say, and when you prostrate, you thank Allah for this good news. Say, for example, you get a promotion at your job. You can prostrate and just thank Allah for this promotion. Say, for example, I get good news. I say that, I get my rent's paid by somebody. I can prostrate, and thank Allah. You don't have to make wudu or any of that. No certain special supplications. You just say, thank you, Allah, for whatever the good news was. Everybody understand? Any questions on that? Because that's all there is. The religion is simple. Islam is easy. That's all there is to that. Okay, so now I want to speak about the prostrations of forgetfulness. Now, these prostrations are performed whenever you forget something during the prayer. And let's talk about this. And let me once again put up my Zoom so I can read it. I want you guys to know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a human being. He was not an angel. He was not made out of light, like the Sufis say. He was a human being. He was a man. And being that he was a man, he sometimes forgot. because that's part of the nature of the human being. In fact, the prophet used to sometimes forget during the prayer too. And that's why the prophet said, I am a human being and I forget just like you forget. If I forget something, remind me. And there are specific points concerning the prostration of forgetfulness during the prayer. And I'm going to go over them. First of all, how do we perform these prostrations? Well, the prostration of forgetfulness, these are two prostrations. Now, when you want to thank Allah, when you prostrate to thank Allah, you just do one prostration. But for the prostration of forgetfulness, they are two prostrations that you make either before the taslim or after the taslim, depending on the situation, as I'm going to go over. We have this authentic hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if one of you has some doubts during your prayer and you can't remember how many rakats you perform, you don't know if you prayed 3 or 4, then you can put an end to your doubt by simply performing the prayer according to what you think you prayed. And then before you give taslim, make 2 prostrations of sujood. So you're going to do 2 prostrations before you salam out of the prayer. So let's say I don't know, Latifa, let's say I don't know if I did 2 rakats or 3 rakats or 4. I'm going to guess and say, well, I guess I did 3. I'm going to finish my prayer. And then when I'm sitting, before I say assalamu alaikum, after I recite the tashahhud, I'm going to do 2 prostrations. I'm going to go Allahu Akbar and come back up, and Allahu Akbar and come back up, and then give salams. Does everybody understand that? Now, if I think I did more rakats, if I think I did more rakats than I was supposed to, then I would do the prostrations after the salam. And that's the difference there. If I didn't think I did too much, I'm going to prostrate before I give salams. If I think I did too many rakats, I'm going to give salams first and then do the 2 prostrations. So that's how they're done. And when do we perform them? Well, if a person, if you can't remember how many rakats you made, or if you think you made too many rakats. And here's the hadith on that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed either the Dhuhr or the Asr prayer, and he only did 2 rakats, and then he salamed out. When he got up, the people went to him and asked him, they said, was the prayer shortened? And he said, no. And he said, what, did I forget? They said, yes, you only did 2 rakats. So then what the Prophet did is he went back and led the people in 2 more rakats to make it 4. And then he made taslim. Everybody understand that? So that's another time that you do these prostrations. If you think you did too much, or you think you did too many, or let's say after you were done praying, you realize that you only did 2 rakats instead of 4. Then you go back and make the 2 rakats that you omitted and then do the prostrations. Y'all understand that? Because remember, each prayer has a certain number of rakats. If you pray 2 and then somebody tells you, hey, you only did 2 and you thought you did 4, then you go back, give Allahu Akbar, perform those 2 rakats, Then after the second rakat, when you recite the tashahhud, before you taslim out, you do 2 prostrations of sujood and then do the taslim out. I hope that's clear. Okay, and that's related by Bukhari and Muslim. And then we have another hadith where the same thing happened too with another one of the companions, Az-Zubair. Az-Zubair, he was praying Maghrib. Instead of doing 3 rakats, he did 2. And then when he was done, somebody told him, you only did 2. So he went back, performed that last rakat, and then before he salamed out, he did 2 prostrations to make up for that. And I hope that's clear. So that's the third instance in which we do that. Also, say for example, you add something to the prayer. And I just went over that. You prayed more rakats than required. The taslim is after. Okay? What else I have here? Say you forgot something. Let's say, for example, you forgot one of the pillars of the salat. Say, for example, you forgot one of the pillars. If you forgot a pillar, what do? You have to pray the whole prayer over, because a pillar means that the prayer is not accepted. But let's say that you forgot a sunnah. For example, the first tashahhud. The first tashahhud is a sunnah. We have this hadith here, whereas the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you stand after 2 rakats and you have not completely stood, then you should sit. And if you're already completely standing, you should not sit and then make the 2 prostrations of forgetfulness. So again, say, for example, you were praying and right during the prayer, you forgot to say the first tashahhud. Then right before you end your prayer, you would do 2 prostrations of forgetfulness before giving the salam. Okay? And these are all the hadiths proving that. You guys can take screenshots of this page. These are all the authentic hadiths on that. Okay? So now, to make it simple, because I know this can be confusing, I want y'all to pay attention. Write it down. The prostration of forgetfulness. If you perform more rakats than needed, you give the salams first and then do 2 prostrations afterwards. If you did not perform enough rakats, you do the 2 prostrations first and then give the salam. If you're making salat and you realize, for example, you forgot to recite the tashahhud, the first tashahhud, you would do the 2 prostrations before you give the salam then too. But if you forget a pillar of the prayer, such as the second tashahhud, you have to perform that whole prayer over. Is that clear?